My chair's getting lower, I'm getting shorter. I don't know what you mean.
The way things are, computer hackers and everything else in this world, I don't think it's... Yeah, because I figured out what it costs us. It's actually plus it's performing because it is, right? You know, we had that our premium.
I can understand.
I wish you would leave it.
Right, I understand what you're saying. Just good business practices, good things you should do.
Yeah, that's under the...
Yeah, he is.
commercial code.
The thing is, this is for yesterday. This year's it's all sound.
Good morning, everyone. It's 9 o'clock on the 16th of August, Saturday, ready to convene a regular board meeting in Fort Clark Springs. Do we have a roll call?
Sure. Roberson?
Here.
Sweet?
Here.
Castle?
Here.
Herman?
Here.
Hagan?
Here.
We have a quorum and all board members are present. Ms. Brown, I guess, would you read the invocation?
Lord, you have showered us here at Fort Clark with so many blessings. Let us be appreciative of those blessings and thank this board for all the efforts they put forth on our behalf, that we all might work together for the benefit of Fort Clark Springs. Please watch over those overseas who are fighting for this country, those who are suffering in their religious, for their religious beliefs. Bless those at home and each person here in the trials and tribulations they may be experiencing in their own lives. We ask all of these things in your name, Jesus Christ. Amen.
Hagan?
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Honor the Texas flag. I pledge allegiance to thee, Texas, one state, under God,
one and indivisible.
Well, I guess our first agenda item is announcements and correspondence.
I have a few of those. We have, first of all, I received a email from Ann Watt in Canada who said if the people who are speaking in the audience would identify themselves when they spoke, it would be helpful to those who are watching online. So while I can't say we can require you to do that, it would be nice if you would. Then we have complaint forms from James L. Baird, including a letter from him on Unit 14. His complaint concerns members, guests who do not live in Unit 14 taking shortcuts in motorized vehicle through Unit 14. To Ms. Stevens, reference the bylaws of Fort Clark Springs Association, Article 7, miscellaneous duties of the Director of Operation. Unit 14 has endured a myriad of past exclusion from events, perhaps the biggest being ignored in the repaving fiasco a few years ago. This is a much simpler complaint which I and others believe should be addressed. I discussed this with Mr. Bland a few years ago and was promised a response, but never received one. Okay, I didn't file a written complaint, and this should not require everyone in a unit to complain if the violation is one that should apply as a general condition of operating motorized vehicles on the fort. It does happen anywhere. The issue is I am sick and tired of members speeding down the middle of Zavala Street, taking a shortcut to get to Fort Clark Road to proceed south to the golf course, or other units and doing the same thing in reverse to get to the Scales Road and head east. No one is complaining about guests coming here or bicycles or walkers using the mini and very uneven trail between Fort Clark Road and the end of the... Geez, don't make me start again.
Hey.
No way. It should be noted that the end of Zavala at this point is nowhere near either of the two paved legal entrances to Unit 14, both on Scales Road. So what we have is members, guests living in units down Scales Road, disrespecting members, property owners in Unit 14 by refusing to properly continue down to the stop sign at Fort Clark Road and then turn right or left, depending which way they are headed. Long ago, there were two tall iron poles on the ground in Fort Clark Road entrance, presumably to do just that. Prevent motorized vehicles from entering there. There was still one bent there a few years ago, which has since been removed. At present, there are only signs on the green area announcing the responsibility of pet owners to clean up after their pets. I suggest that without installing one or two barriers, that another sign be placed announcing the prohibition of any motorized vehicle using that small trail, perhaps similar to the one on the walking track. This way, infractions could be monitored and enforced if necessary. This is not brain surgery, but the right thing to do. Please notice that unlike most other units, no street in Unit 14 runs through or connects to other units in its vicinity. He has another letter related to environmental layout conditions of the units, and maybe that should be directed to the architectural committee. I assume it probably was. Oh my word. He has a dangerous corner that he's complaining about, and I think that the architectural committee might will look at that. Say any more?
I don't think so, no, ma'am.
I've got one, but I'll just bring it up in executive session because it makes a lot of names and no profanity. Go here.
Sorry, I read that ahead of time to make sure I'd read it right, but it didn't come out that way. Thank you.
I guess we should do reading approval of the minutes, July 19th, 2014.
I move to approve the minutes.
I second that motion.
We need to add Bill Herman's name in there. He wasn't called, he wasn't added on the roll call.
Oh gee. I asked them to add mine and then they took Bill's.
Just need to add Bill's name.
Sorry, Monique, I should have got that.
We all should. Actually, the minutes are very well written.
Apologies, Mr.
I have a couple of minor typos too, but I can show you those later.
No other discussion or comments? A vote to approve the minutes as with the corrections Martin noted. All in favor? The Director of Operations report.
Oh, yeah.
Morning.
Morning.
Past 6 weeks have been, my head's been buried in the budget, trying to get everything together. So as far as continuation of cleaning out around the fort, that's still happening. I think the maintenance crew is finally getting a little bit on top of cleaning and caught up on mowing. And during the planning of the budget, looking forward to the new year, is how to get community events and bring the camaraderie back to our membership with, going back to the ideas of movie night and concerts and things of this nature. I'm looking really forward to working with Community Council. Alice and I met 3 weeks ago? 2 weeks ago. So she knows I was buried in the middle of my numbers and my budget, so next couple of weeks we'll get back together and really come up with a game plan for Fort Clark Days and how we're going to marry up and make this a very successful event for the fort. And again, giving something for the community to come together on and maybe unite with our history and our celebration of our Fort Clark Days. A lot more golf tournaments are going to be planned for the upcoming year, continuing with our October Fest, which is going to be the 3rd year. I'm kind of excited about that. Hopefully we'll expand on that event and make it bigger and better. Along with our Thanksgiving tournament, we're going to try to do our best to get that golf course back to a black situation instead of a red situation. A lot more marketing and things of this nature. The Chris Kringle golf tournament, which will be Christmas time, and also the 2nd annual New Year's Eve or New Year's Day hangover tournament. So hopefully we'll be bringing in some new business to that golf course. Also in the planning is obviously a lot of things that we need to do around here repair-wise. Motel, hopefully will generate some money that we can finish remodeling on the Bullis Hall. We needed a lot more, we'll go into all the budget stuff probably on Monday when we do our workshop. But anyway, lots of planning, there's lots of things that need to be done. Golf course, obviously, I think we had a list of about $22,000 worth of stuff that we need out of the golf course to hopefully make it look a little better. But as you look at all these and number crunching and whatnot, you kind of realize there's not a lot of income coming in, no matter how much you want to plan and how much you need. It's kind of the bare minimums. But other than that, proud of the team for moving forward, making the place look good. Hopefully we can in the near future foreclose on some properties, move forward with these things, that we start cleaning up our community. Other than that, thank you. Have a wonderful day.
On our membership deal, we have foreclosures and it has 7 on them. Is that just memberships that we foreclose on throughout the year?
No, I think we haven't foreclosed on anybody this year. So probably like we would like to do, your 7 that we had in the, you never
That's
made
what
it
it's
to. Yes, sir.
referring to, okay.
Uh-huh.
Then I guess committee with organizational reports, the architectural committee.
My name is Phyllis Goodwin, and I'm a member of the Architect Committee. And I do want to thank Bill Herman, who is our board member that does attend our meetings. And we meet every Tuesday at 9 o'clock here in the boardroom. Applications were submitted and permits were granted in Unit 3 for a radio antenna. Our amateur radio people are really getting active in our community. Unit 14, a fence permit was granted. Unit 35, a back porch is going to be constructed. And in Unit 21, which is a specialty unit, a partial permit was granted for a sidewalk. And the other is being taken under consideration because it is within the historical community.
Golf.
The golf committee did meet on Wednesday. We had a quorum at the meeting. We did go over our last meeting notes, which was April, I believe, was the last time we had a full quorum. Some of the old business that we discussed was the gift certificates. You can now buy a gift certificate at the golf course. You can buy it with or without a card. So if you've got that person that's really hard to buy something for, you can go down and buy a gift certificate and give them to them. This is actually just a copy of what was given. And whoever's working the pro shop has to sign off on it, and then they have to check if they paid for or did not pay for a card. We also, as Jody mentioned, we're having a Labor Day tournament that will be going to the golf course this afternoon. I've got flyers and a entry blank that's going to the golf course today. I'll get that down there. Debbie Isaacs, by the way. We are planning on having, the golf committee is helping with the Happy Cervantes tournament. He is maybe wanting to turn that tournament over to the fort and to the golf committee. We need to discuss that a little further and to what extent he's actually wanting us to take it over. There's been some conversation brought up about us going to one of these programs that actually charges us so much for every hit that goes onto their website, and they give away our golf. And that's what it basically amounts to. We've got people that go out at 8 o'clock, we got people that go out at 9 o'clock, we got a 10 o'clock bunch, we got a 10:30 bunch, we got an 11 o'clock bunch, and I think the 1 o'clock bunch is now going at 12 or a little earlier. And the only places that are really open on our golf course is 4, 5, and 6 o'clock. The course closes at 6, so they can't get a golf cart after 6 anyhow. So why would we want to pay somebody to give away golf gear, just to get somebody in here? We can do that ourselves later on once we get going and we need that. But that's one of the perks of being on this golf course is because you do not have to have a tee time to go out. Just saying. We have and I've also got that, we have phone numbers, emails, addresses for over 91 golf courses. We have 265 women's addresses and 295 men's addresses from all around our area, people that have played this golf course. So we do have all of that in a computer program. Just to let people know that we are very up onto what we're trying to do with the golf course and trying to bring in new people. One of the things we've also talked about last month was initiating an active military discount for anybody that's active military to come in on a certain day. I'm not sure what day that's going to be just yet or what the discount's going to be, but we're going to try to bring in some of the military people with the discount. And hopefully that'll generate some income. We've also, on new business, we've instigated 2 work days, one on August the 25th, and that's to go out and spray the golf cart paths with weed killer, pick up trash, fill in the holes where the deer have actually been up there playing. And also on Monday, September the 8th, will be the week before the Happy Cervantes tournament. So when the people are in playing this tournament, they can see that things have changed on the golf course. So we've got those, and we are looking for volunteers, and there will be a volunteer list down there today. I've got those made up also to take to the golf course. And then, of course, like Jody said, we have scheduled, we're working on the Oktoberfest, the Thanksgiving, and also the Christmas. There's some other things going on that we may want to try a family day, a discount for a family of 4 or more. It's kind of hard for a family to go out there if they're not members and pay $20-something a person to play. But if we can instigate a family day, maybe we can get some children and some wives and do this instead of the family going into Del Rio to the movies or something. So that's another thing we're looking at. And we've got some more things, but we're not quite there with those yet.
Do you guys happen to have a count of how many feet or miles of golf trails you got? And how many of them are bad that need, because we went out there, a lot of the trails
The
are not
trails
good.
are all bad. There's never been no money put back into the trails, even though we pay a trail fee every year. But no, I'm sure there is a mileage thing, but I've
Well, I was wondering if we could get, work on maybe some sort of estimate on what it would take to fix them or repave them or put more cold patch on them, or ideas on how to do it, or something to that we could work on.
I think Domingo may know what it was gonna cost, because when they done the roads, somebody got an estimate of what that would cost to do that, and it just was not feasible. But I think Domingo may know those good.
He does. It was put in the budget as a wish list item, but it's too much. He can do it sections at a time.
That's right, if we could work on a little piece at a
We
time.
can, but it
maybe
takes money, and that's something we don't have a lot of.
And the less you do, the higher the cost is. The more you do, the cost goes down. So I do know that. But I know it was astronomical at the time they done the roads. We just couldn't afford it.
The figure that I was given the last time I heard was almost $100,000 to do the complete cart path system. So that's why it was called on the wish list. But actually, our members have gone out with cold asphalt and have repaired some of the areas. The reason we need to get the weeds out of there is because they come up and break up the asphalt. And the flooding that we had a month ago didn't help. It floated certain sections and broke them up. So it's something that we would like to do, but just don't have it right now.
The Preservation Committee?
I'm growing young, and we're back in action, so to speak. We had a meeting Wednesday. We approved sending out contracts to finish up the service center.
Could you ask him to speak?
And then to repair
Could you maybe speak up or come up to the, because the other people can't hear very well? Well, when Lady wrote it on the thing, the computer visitors couldn't hear.
It's on. It's on.
We had a meeting Wednesday, and we approved working on the service center. Their siding is bad. We're gonna fix some of the rafters that come out. They'll have to be sistered in and stuff like that. We're gonna send out bids on that. We're getting a list of 6. Well, we've got a total of 6 contractors. I called up 4, and Bill Good called up 2 more. And once we got their okay, we'll put the package together, send out the contract, and get the bid on that. We also approved work on Seminole Hall, the front of Seminole Hall. It'd be too much money to do the whole building at one time, but we want to get the front of it look. We're going to repair the decking up on the upper deck. The area where the bats come in, that has to be sealed at night so the bats are out. Stabilize the railing up there. Replace the fascia on the front. The 2 corner posts, I think it's the east end, that have been patched and look terrible. We're going to have those replaced and have the whole front of the building painted in 4 colors. Check the windows, replace the screens, check the doors, prep the doors, get it worked on. Same thing, both of those contracts will go out in a package. The contractors will have a option of bidding on 1 or 2 for both of the contracts. That's the contracts we're going to send out. We talked about the fire station, since maintenance has got the roof sealed on that, it doesn't leak anymore. That'll be at the next meeting. That's an old building. If we start working with it, we can get a plaque, reduce our taxes. The adult center is another one. Commissary. We got windows up there on the 3rd deck and 2nd deck that have holes you can look outside and see the sky. They have to be repaired. Philip just got done telling me that maintenance is thinking about repairing it. But those buildings, the commissary especially, would have to be repaired with the mortar that matches the mortar that's there, otherwise we'll ruin our wing. We've got a lot of projects in the wind, and we can only do a certain amount. Like the fire station, we can't do it all at one time because every window in there is bad. But if we start on it, we can probably get a plaque, get the Historical Society to put in for a plaque and reduce our taxes. That's all I got from the Preservation Committee.
Has the Ford and you guys discussed on where the wall fell down there?
I looked, yeah, wall. That wasn't talked about Wednesday, but I went down and walked that wall. It's my understanding that it's the Preservation's obligation to repair that wall. It'll have to be repaired. It'll have to be done right this time. From what I'm looking at the wall, there was no seat pipes put in on the original where it fell down. The new section, they went back and they buried a slab of concrete and run rebar back and tied it into the new section that's got the padding. But that whole wall needs to have seat pipes put into it. And then if you walk along it and look, you can see where grass is growing out. That means that the water's coming through there and the dirt's there, so it's growing grass. That has to be repaired. The top of that wall needs to have rock replaced and sealed concrete. And the rest of the wall needs to have seat pipes put in so we don't have a problem with the rest of the wall. I do know there's a slope there that was originally for drainage. The ground looks like it's supposed to be sloping there. But it's all grown up with grass and dirt, and it needs to be redone, and that will help out a little bit. And that'll be on the agenda for the next meeting. We'll have to find out who did the last work out here, and make sure that seat pipes are put in. Otherwise, you're just wasting money. This will be the 4th time.
Yeah, like you said, we probably need to somehow figure in on going all the way down through there, right, gradually?
Well, if you put seat pipes in, it'll run down to the drain that's already there.
Yeah.
And there's no seat pipes in the rest of that wall, and it won't take much but a rock. You know, that sandstone is really soft. You cut a square hole, put a pipe in there and mortar around it, and it'll take care of that probably. But we gotta seal the top of it. We gotta dig out the mortar, put the grass on it, re-mortar it. And then we have to check and see how many seat pipes can be put in. You put one at the bottom and you put one maybe a foot down from the top. But I'm not an engineer, so I don't know how many or what the specifications are, but we gotta find that out. Because we don't want to have this as a continuous project right after we get a big rain.
Ruby? May I ask another question? Do you have a list for the first thing that you need is this? In other words,
Have we prioritized
yes.
this? No, ma'am, we haven't.
Seminole Hall is our first
Seminole Seminole Hall
you made it sound like the service club was.
the service club and Seminole Hall. The service club will be finished. Seminole Hall is the next priority.
Okay, you're working on service.
Yeah, we're contracting.
I misunderstood, thank you.
And then in the other projects, such as fire station, commissary building, golf center.
Almost everything needs to be done. What I'm asking for is could the board have prioritized those from the committee, please?
No, we don't. I mean, we.
Could you get one, please? That's what I'm asking.
No,
Yes,
I mean,
we do, Garland. We've got one.
Huh?
We have a list.
We haven't prioritized it yet, though.
Well, it was submitted to us from Kenny County Historical Preservation Society, and they go around to all of our historical buildings and rate them. And
Phyllis,
they
I
are-
understand. I'm just saying,
And yes, we do.
it doesn't matter to me that you have one now. What I'm asking for is could the board have one in the future?
Sure.
Yeah, we can get you one, once we prioritize. That's no problem.
Please, thank you.
Yeah.
What about, do you ever check into getting grant money from the state?
I just talked to Allison Watkins, told her I needed to talk to her after the meeting. To get a grant, you have to be a 501(c), and we got Old Prairie Society, Historical Society, and the Community Council all have 501(c). Hopefully, with the Community Council, we can get a working coalition that we can write a grant and matching cash, grants, but we don't have a 501(c) now. And, but we should be able to work with the other organizations that have 501(c)s and get grants written so we can get money. If we can get $100,000 or $200,000, some people said put in for matching grants. Well, if you put in for matching grants, you don't have to come up with all that money at one time. You know, you pay $10,000 a year, 10 years. You know, the grant goes for. So anyway, yes, we're talking about getting grants and stuff like that.
Thank you.
A lot of the government grants don't apply to us because we are we're a private entity, so a lot of grants that you can apply for we cannot get some of those because of this being a private property. So the grants you have to apply for have to come from a different.
From outside.
Sometimes.
Community Council?
Good morning. My name is Allison Watkinson. I'm president of Community Council. I gave you all a written report as well above, but I'll go through that. Fort Clark Springs Community Council met last Saturday, August 9, 2014. We want to thank Directors Roby Roberson and Bill Herman for attending. Our memorandum of agreement for Fort Clark Days was given to Jody Stevens. Immediate concerns in our agreement were Fort Clark Days putting the insurance bill for 4 bundled events: Fort Clark Days and New Year's Eve, Valentine's Day, and the chili cook-off. Jody stated the fort would only consider paying the insurance for the 2-day event, and the insurance for the other events would need to be paid for by the sponsoring organizations, since these would be considered fundraising events for those organizations, rather than bringing all that money into Fort Clark Days. Another initial area of concern was the 60-40 split of funds raised by the event. Essentially, Fort Clark Springs Association would be seeking sponsorships for the event. They would be offering advertising opportunities to sponsors. Sponsors' contributions would pay the bills for the event. Fort Clark Springs Community Council would have opportunities to fundraise through raffle tickets, bake sale, etc. Therefore, should there be a 60-40 split. Ms. Stevens asked for a couple of weeks to look over the memorandum of agreement, and we would meet again to get additions, corrections, before taking the memorandum back to Fort Clark Springs Community Council for another vote in September. Event insurance issues were again brought to the forefront, and Roby indicated he would be meeting with the Fort's insurance agent this week so he could get a better understanding of the issues. Secretary Forrester is continuing to work on the legality of the hot ball in the bingo games. Mr. Giblin resigned as first vice president. He's been hired by Brackett ISD full-time as the director of maintenance department and does not feel as though he is able to appropriately commit himself to community council. We are seeking volunteers to carry out his term that will end January 2016. We voted to pursue offering another Halloween Ghostly Tour fundraising event this year. Last year's one-night event was a howling success, and we would like to offer this again this year. Hopefully I will be able to meet with David Fox this week to iron out the details so we can do this again. Tricia Taylor gave us a wonderful rundown on the Kinney County Chamber of Commerce and all of the upcoming events they are hoping to sponsor. She also reported on the events of the Kinney County Arts Council, and Fort Clark Springs Community Council has joined the chamber as a non-voting member. Members' comments included complimenting the webmaster on the Fort's webpage. Number 2, the length of the meeting and the agenda of the Fort Clark Springs Association Board of Directors, as well as the purpose and rights of the audience at the meeting. And 3, distributing the e-newsletter on a weekly basis. Community Council, along with other groups on the Fort, would be able to give much more timely information if the e-newsletter were once again weekly rather than a monthly publication. And then 2 items that are not included on your summary. We voted to give a $100 donation to the Feast of Sharing. And then we had originally intended to present the Building Restoration Committee with a check today, but we're going to postpone that until next month because I forgot to take a vote at the last meeting about not keeping our 40% split this year. We still have funds left in our checking account from last year for putting on the Fort Clark Days, and then we also have startup funds. So I'm not sure that keeping our 40% was a necessity, but I need to take that back to whoever's present at the September meeting. We've kind of briefly talked about it in the past. Our next meeting is scheduled for September 13th.
We, on the e-newsletter, there's been a lot of comments about having a more regular or more less times between newsletters. Is there any reason we couldn't put out more of an e-newsletter?
What was happening was the information was redundant and things weren't getting sent to David on it, it was just the same information over and over. It just seemed to be a lot more advantageous just to have a monthly calendar or monthly events as opposed to weekly, because there's not a lot of new stuff to be sending out.
It's not really clear to me what the deadlines are for getting something in there either.
Well, we send it out Wednesday morning when we send out the agenda. So normally if they're there by the Tuesday before the board meeting.
Okay, I don't think that's in the newsletter itself, is it?
I think he sends out a notification it's on the bottom, I think, of the newsletter. If you have information you would like on the next month's newsletter, please contact me with such and such information.
I'll have to read it again.
Recycling?
Well, recycling is going along. We're almost ready to send out another load. Judy had been in contact with the people we work with on recycling, and they're going to have another electronics recycling done. So they asked us to participate. So hopefully by next Saturday, we'll have some gaylords out for people who want to start bringing over electronic stuff. We made some pretty good money on that last time. And there will be a list of, which I have, what can and cannot be recycled in terms of electronics. And hopefully we'll be able to set that up, you know, around different places on the fort so people will know. But hopefully we can get that started next week, and we will accept electronics on the same days that the recycling center is open.
RV? We don't have anybody from the RV, they're all,
The RV committee doesn't meet until the winter time when they get back into town.
we used to have a deal from the staff about how occupancy of the RV park.
Well, that's because Shirley was, we haven't had that since Shirley was been over a year now, year and a half. Due to the fact there's not any
Does
committee.
nobody have the RV
Right.
park? The next item is discussion and approval of the Fort Park Springs insurance policy.
Additions to that.
Yep. Do we have a motion?
I will move that we discuss the insurance policy for the year 2013, 14, 15, excuse me.
I'll second it.
We have a motion and a second. The motion was made by Sandy Hagan, seconded by Myrna Castle. Open for discussion?
You gonna vote on that motion?
I guess, yeah. All in favor? All voting and approves?
Well, first of all, I'd like to let everybody in membership here away that because of our excellent workers' compensation experience history, we received a dividend check for $6,629. We haven't had any losses in the last 2 years. And and I'm a retired work comp insurance claim specialist, and that is astounding. So I think that Jody and Phil and everybody who's in charge of employees deserve credit for reinforcing our safety programs here at the fort. That's a lot of money to do.
The insurance agent explained their policy, and one of the comments has been about event insurance and how come we're having to charge for all that, and we haven't in the past. And the event insurance is a secondary layer of coverage. It's one more insulating layer between the accident and Fort Clark. And anything that doesn't happen on a regular basis on Fort Clark, or is put on by people that are not part of Fort Clark, should have that event coverage you suggested, and that protects the fort from anything happening and hitting their insurance policy. It's something we probably should have always been doing and haven't been. The fort was at risk with everything. If somebody fell down, broke their leg, they could sue the fort, even if it was on Fort Clark days or whatever happened. So if it's any event that's different than the fort usually sponsors, it's not a regular, like golf. Golf happens every day, all day long, so it's covered. But Fort Clark days, the fireworks, things like that are special events. And it brings in people that aren't normally on the fort, and they're not normally used to what's going on, so that's why that insurance rider was added, or it was suggested we buy that coverage a year ago, I guess. I think on the entities on the fort, like Fort Clark days, the fireworks thing, that's for the good of the community and the good of the fort. I think the fort could mitigate that by actually donating the cost of the insurance to that entity. So, because the fort can't buy extra insurance for the Fort Clark days, and somebody else put it on. We could donate the money that it costs to whoever was putting the event on, then they could buy the insurance, and we would have made a donation to them so that they wouldn't have to pay the insurance. But for events that don't necessarily benefit the fort, I do feel that the people should pay for their own. They need to adhere to the policy we've got, that they have to buy their event insurance. But generally, the insurance is, I think we've got a really good insurance deal, and the guy explained it pretty well. never find the right page at the right time. If you divide the insurance out, we're paying $163 and change for insurance. That comes down to the 1,800 paying members.
63,000.
Oh, yeah,
Change,
163,000.
I'd love that policy myself.
Anyway, it comes down, if you divide it by the paying members on the fort, that comes down to 23 cents a day is what it costs us for insurance. That's not a lot of money by any means. And we've got, I mean, we have a lot of risk. Therefore, I think that, you know, those few events that benefit the fort could make a donation for the amount their insurance is. The board would have to approve that, but that would help them, because the fort benefits from those events.
I have one question on it. When someone rents a building here, and we tell them it's so much for insurance, do we collect the money and buy the insurance, or does the person renting the building have to go out and get their own insurance? How's that work?
The person that's renting the building has to go out and get their insurance. We have a number they can call our broker, or they can research it on their own and get that additional policy.
That's good. I wasn't real clear about that.
And we did have an addition that we talked about. We're covered for employee fraud and illegal transfer of funds up to a given amount, but we thought we should probably raise it. I guess this needs to be a second item, really.
Well, it's part of the entire policy.
Yeah, we've done it before.
Yeah, we wanted to raise the coverage, and the guy couldn't give us the exact number at the time, but it raises the coverage by employee fraud or illegal transfer, or somebody hacks into the fort's account. They could steal all the money the fort's got, or your checking account, and we would only be covered for part of it, and we thought it should be covered for all of it possibly. That was the only addition and change we made of it.
Right, because our accounts run over $500,000 on a regular basis. And we wouldn't want a computer hacker to get into those accounts and empty them. Because really, there's no way to get that money totally back again. So this particular premium increase is for computer fraud. And it adds $912 to the total premium coverage. But you're protecting $500,000 or more in assets. And it's actually probably one of the more important things in the chances of a hacker attacking the fort's accounts is, and getting most of the money is a lot higher than an employee going in and doing it because of our checks and balances.
Any other discussion? Seeing none, do we want to vote on approving the policy? And do we want to include this in there or approve this separately as a writer? Because we've still got it.
I think you could make the motion so that it be included.
Right. That's what I was.
Okay, well, then I will move that we agree to this insurance policy with the additional endorsement of computer fraud.
I'd like you to include the amount that it costs, the total amount.
All right, the amount of the, okay, I will rephrase the, here's our total, okay. I will move that we approve the insurance policy for 14-215 and $163,346 plus the addition of computer fraud, adding an additional $912 to that premium, which would be somebody who's good at math. $164,812.
I'll second the motion.
Any further discussion? Seeing none, all in favor? Vote carries unanimously. Number 9 would be discussion and approval of the Fort Clark Springs bylaws, elections to send to the attorney.
The committee worked on this for quite a while. As it stands now, we'd like it to be submitted as it was submitted to finally to Jody, rather than with the addition of returning the undeliverables to the fort. I did discuss this with Jody. Her reasons are reasonable, but the committee would like it to be sent to the legal as it was, please. You want to fight that again, you can do it after it comes back.
Are you saying as is in our package?
No, as it was in the last one that I submitted to all of you and to Jody. She has added, return the ballots to the undeliverable ones to the fort. And
No, that's not in there.
I'm sorry, did I get it wrong?
No, it's in here. It's in here.
I didn't add anything.
The one I have in the packet includes ballots returned as undeliverable shall be delivered to the Director of Operations after the annual
Yes,
meeting.
and that's what I'm asking.
Yeah, but it's after the annual March
This is
meeting.
after the meeting, correct, okay.
Still
You're
saying, that isn't what I submitted to all of you and to Jody. The committee would like it to remain as it was, which was for it to remain with the auditing firm.
Okay. And I'm not quite sure, and the reason for that is,
The possibility of fraud and so forth and so on.
if it comes back to the fort after the March meeting, the results have already been announced, I don't understand where the fraud would come in.
I think there's somebody in the audience that can answer that if Roby will.
Yes, Mr. Sullivan.
The problem isn't with that particular election. My name's Dan Sullivan. The problem is that would be a list that could affect the next election, the next cycle. If someone were to get their hands on that list and they know all these people never get their mail delivered, the ballots are never delivered to them, that would be a temptation to use those names and lists to submit invalid or forged ballots. And so it shouldn't be. And I would also like to mention that at last month's meeting, there was a motion made by Ms. Hagan, and it was stated that the revisions to the Article 4, the election bylaws, would be done by the ad hoc committee and then immediately sent to the attorneys to make sure they were legally compliant. And that motion was passed unanimously by your board. There was nothing said that it was supposed to come back to the board to gerrymander it or change it around, change this and change that, and then send it off. That wasn't the motion. The motion was to be sent immediately from the committee to the attorneys.
Okay, well, it was my understanding that also the reason this went to committee was to have the individuals on that committee bring that part of the statute under 209, which they did not do. Secondly, it was also our understanding that the committee would be formed of various representation from the fort. And if you will recall, for the, I believe it was the architectural committee, we required that people have a chance to sign up for that committee. And as far as this thing, there were only 2 members on that committee, and it was not opened up to the general membership on the fort to allow them to give their input, as well as just the 2 people, you and the other individual, with Myrna's oversight to do that. So and there also was nothing in the motion that said that the board could not give its input to it. So, but first of all, I was more interested in the fraud aspect. Is there some history on the fort that this has happened in the past?
Not that I'm aware of necessarily, but I am aware of people that have concerns about that, and this would alleviate those concerns, and there's no possibility that it's a clean deal.
Okay, you do realize that we do need those lists of returned mail to take those people off the next mailing list. Otherwise, every time we send something out to the general membership, we waste postage, paper, envelopes, and time sending it to bad addresses. Is that part of your concern, or?
Well, it's my understanding that if they are on the membership list as members, that you are required to send them a ballot. You can't just pull them off. You have to get rid of the membership before you can do that.
That is correct.
I was under the impression or understood that you need to send, the mailings out, yes, but you can keep track of them after a certain amount of time on official paperwork that is sent from the fort, that at that time you can then take these people off the list.
You'd have to cite your source for that. For me,
I
I've never read that
I
anywhere
understand what
in
you're
any
saying,
of
but this is what I was
Yeah.
told, that you can, you say, for 3 years, we send out, anyway, we send out mail, to the membership, and for 3 years, Fred Smith comes back as undeliverable, okay? Then, at that time, we take him off the list, because at that point, you would assume, or could assume, or whatever, he doesn't exist anymore.
So for how many years so far do you have the list of undeliverables?
Can I answer that?
Sure.
If anybody was gonna be dishonest, we already know which ones are the bad addresses, so you'd have it from the get-go. Because we've got 7 years of audits from the auditing firm with the bad addresses on it, so if we're already gonna be dishonest, we'd already do that.
Then you should be able to take them off the list now, right?
If you could, if you wanted to, because we have you got about 250 that are bad addresses. So every coupon, every vote, we send it out, 250. Anybody who gets a mailing list to run for the board, the upcoming, you had a whole list of bad addresses. We're still gonna run that report, we're still gonna send it regardless.
$300 worth of thing. That's what I paid for my list. First off, the ad hoc committee is appointed, chairman is appointed by Myrna, she was put in charge. The ad hoc committee, with Dan Sullivan, they choose who is on the committee. There's no.
You're a little blocked.
But it was also told that they would let people know that wanted to attend, they could attend, and nobody knew anything when they met.
Well, you better check the audio-visual recording of the meeting, because that was not said here.
It was
Announced
stated.
here that anybody that
It
wanted
was
to be
stated.
involved
If
could.
somebody wanted to come and see what you were doing, it was stated on the
was
video.
stated.
It was.
And
But
I-
who knew? Who knew when you met?
I
You
believe
should
Myrna,
ask. You asked.
When, no.
We had to pause for the architectural, can we talk about the policy?
You've got email addresses, there's a
I
bulletin
don't
board out
have email
front.
addresses of the
Excuse me.
That was gonna be done.
Excuse me.
Done by the administration office.
I believe Ms. Casa did ask for members and state the date of the first meeting here.
I did. Also, if you read the motion that Sandy made on page 3 of last month's minutes, it is as Dan has stated. The problem with all of this is an ad hoc committee. There isn't time to post it and really no reason, because it's a committee that comes together because of their interest. Dan had been working on this for 2 months before it was finally brought to the board, but he had brought things to the board individually before, so it wasn't new, and Dan had been working on it, so he really made the obvious appointment of a chair.
And the ad hoc committee was supposed to create the list and then send it to, have it sent to the attorneys, then it would come back before the board for discussion and approval.
But the ad hoc committee was also responsible for bringing the election statutes under 209, which they did not do.
No, they weren't. That's why it's going to the lawyer.
That's right.
Yeah, that was the
No,
whole reason
no.
of sending it to the attorneys. You're concerned for.
And then we would have to send it
209.
back again. And
No, I don't
this is
think-
also, ad hoc committee was also an advisory committee. Now, we can send both versions. We're trying to save money. Attorneys are expensive. And by sending a document that clearly had included things that are not under 209, sending them back again, the board making revisions, then we have to send them back to the attorney again. And Myrna was also head of that committee, and she was involved in some of the changes. And
I
there
did
was
not
nothing
head
I
that
could-
committee. I sat in on that committee. I did some typing after everybody, but it did come to the board, and you did have a chance to put in your.
And we did. And we
Yes.
did.
And the committee then again argued against the section of bringing the undeliverables back to the fort. Whether or not I agree with that, it is something the committee requested that be in here. I don't think that there are a lot of changes that the board wants to make after it comes back, because you've already had a chance to put in your changes.
That's true. And I did not make the change there, and I don't know
No,
where
I
that.
understand, and I understand why Jody did it, because it
Jody
makes
said
all
no,
kinds.
Jody-
I didn't
didn't
do
make the
anything.
change
All I
either.
did was put that there was an envelope that all of our election
I'm
ballots.
sorry, I don't know how it got there then.
I
That's
didn't
okay.
add anything to this.
That's what
Oh,
The
I
only-
thought that you or Maria might have changed that particular
No.
section.
The only thing that I brought to attention that was not in there was.
Maybe you kept a section, I mean, I sent it more than once, I'm sorry.
Maybe we did the wrong one.
But yeah, it could have been.
But the only thing we were making a change to that was not in there, which is the only one thing that keeps a person running for the board, is a felony, which is not in this
Right,
proposed bylaw
right.
change.
Right. We did leave it out, we forgot moral turpitude too.
I was gonna say, that was the other thing.
Yeah.
There's two things, right, that should be in there.
Bigger concern that I actually have with the revised, from the board revised edition that was sent back was the one regarding directors' relatives being employees of the fort. And that was changed from what we did, and that was also attempted with the amendment resolution several months ago, 3-4 months ago.
But then we took it out.
Blocked.
We took it out because you noticed that some
Yes,
things
but I want to know,
get
is
by
this
me.
new version, Mr. Herman just said that his still had the one about turning over the list of undeliverable ballots to the administration.
No, believe me,
Does that
I-
also include?
No.
No, it says,
No.
number 8, shall not be related to any administrative level employed by blood, consanguinity, within the 3rd degree, or by marriage or
No, it doesn't.
cohabitation.
That's the
You
administrative.
do
level
have,
was the key.
you do have the
That
wrong
should be
version.
stricken.
I gave you the date of the right version off.
Well,
I will give it to you.
This is the
again.
one that we have in our packet.
Yeah.
That's all, that's all
That's
we can
my
go by
fault.
at this time. We'll see, we'll get.
That's
not-
my
I
fault.
understand, but that's not the correct one, that's not the last one.
Yes, that's my
Have to
fault.
look at
Okay,
it at a different time.
this is the one we were given, Dan, and I'll be honest with you, I didn't even read it because it was a final.
Sandy,
A little change, a couple of words that have a huge impact
Sure.
on our whole association and organization.
There were only 2 things about the, when I read the initial one. The final one I didn't read because I thought it was the one I had read before. But the only thing we're concerned about, in which the attorney is likely going to add, is, again, the felony section.
That's fine.
Okay, and then the only other 2 things that I saw that do not appear to conform, and that's why the attorneys, no one's gonna change it, is the age and the requirement that you be a member for a year, because the new law states that you cannot put any restrictions on people who want to run for the
I
board except
understand,
to be a
and as a
member.
matter of fact, I did not want that requirement to be a member for a year.
I agree with
My
you.
initial ones I did had taken that out. I
But
don't
this,
have a problem
this
with that.
really does not require you to be a member for a year. You can be a member for 6 months. And run
Mr.
for the
President,
board.
what's the focus, discussion of mailing out shoes, or are we going off on a tangent?
Yeah, we're
sir?
kind of off on it.
The whole point of this, the ad hoc committee was supposed to draft something and send it to the lawyers. Nobody else was supposed to mess with it. It's supposed to be a unilateral, bilateral, members' input. If the board members do or don't like it, it doesn't matter till it comes back to the board. Then we have an opportunity to discuss and change as much as we want. Other than that, why have an ad hoc committee? If they have to work under the direction of the board of directors, there's no ad hoc committee.
Well, I think
The
they did.
idea was to have an individual board member, a group of board members, create an executive committee that gave them the power to appoint ad hoc committees from the membership. that are free to operate without the auspices of the board leaning over their shoulder, and come back to the board with what the members want in there. Now it's up to the board. They can change it at any point in time. It's not a written law until the board approves it. And it has to be read in front of the public before the board can approve it. So this changing stuff by somebody that wasn't on the ad hoc committee is pretty dubious. I mean, that's a sneaky looking deal.
Don't say
Don't
that.
say
It's not, that's not
Don't
what
say
happened.
that.
Please, that's not what happened. The wrong version, which is my fault, I was not clear on which version should be included in here, was included in here. There were several versions going back and forth and back and forth. The last one that I said put in, I gave a date and time even, I think it was at night. So it's my fault that I didn't catch this before we came to the meeting, and I apologize.
Okay, if I may, if this is not the one we're voting on in this book, I'm not gonna vote on it.
Review.
Go ahead, Garland.
You're talking about sending this document out to attorney for review.
That's
right?
correct.
Now, if it comes back and the attorney says, I'm sorry, you know this ballot, or you gotta get rid of this, this, and this, is that what you're looking for the attorney to do to make it comply with the new HOA laws?
That's my intention, yes. Mr. Bowen?
My name's Dean Bellman. You're missing something here. Both in the HOA 209 and the Business Organizations Code says that your bylaws must adhere to the Articles of Incorporation. The Articles of Incorporation rule over the bylaws.
And the
Yes,
state
and
law
that's-
rules over our bylaws.
That's one of the,
Pardon?
And the state law supersedes our bylaws and our governing
Yes.
documents.
Yes, the hierarchy of documents
Yes.
are federal, state, declaration,
That's right.
Articles of Incorporation, bylaws.
Right.
Mr. Baumann, we did make it, we did make sure that it wasn't against the declarations. I'll get it eventually. Sorry.
That's not declaration, it's Articles of Incorporation.
Excuse me, Articles of Incorporation, we did check that.
Well, at any rate, the ad hoc committee was supposed to present something to the attorneys, then it would come back to the board.
Okay, so.
I believe this entire train of thought started with, is it okay for the admin office to get a list of bad undeliverable addresses? Yes or no question. An ad hoc committee, post hoc, after the fact. The ad hoc came up with facts, presented facts, job over. Can Jody get a copy of the bad addresses from the election? Was the start of the discussion. Where did we go from there?
I'm sorry, because it was my fault that I submitted
Apologies.
apparently the wrong one. I do have the right one, I would like it to be voted on, and apologize.
Myrna, are you going to send that on then?
This one?
The correct one, the one that you say is,
I can't do that without board approval.
Well, we don't have a copy of it, so we don't know.
I understand you do have a copy of it, it's just not the one that's in there.
I think by our previous motion, it was clear that Myrna should be able to send that to the attorneys when it cleared the ad hoc committee.
it's fine.
What I'm asking is, what is she sending? We don't have a corrected copy of what she's sending, is all I'm asking.
Okay, we're always making an issue about clarity and transparency and whatever, but you're asking us to okay something that we haven't seen the final copy of, and not because of
I'm not
anybody here.
suggesting that you do that.
And if you are saying that it should have gone past us without us seeing it in the first place, then we might as well just send it on.
I think we're beyond that. Right now, the problem is you do not have the accurate one in the
That's
board
true,
packet.
we do not have.
So there can be no vote on approving it. And again, it's my fault because I was not carefully reading what was there. I caught one, but I did not catch the other. And it was my own copy that I sent out, and people reacted to it, and I sent another copy out. And finally, there was a copy at 11 o'clock at night. So it is again my fault for not catching it in here. So please.
However, Myrna had the approval of the board when we created the motion and approved it last month, that when she got what she felt was a resolve, a new bylaw resolution. She was gonna then send it to the attorneys to look at. Then it would come back before the board. Nothing would be approved by the board prior to it coming back from the attorneys.
Okay, then I will make a motion that Myrna send her final copy, sight unseen by the rest of the board, directly to the attorney.
We
And
don't
that-
have to do that motion. It was already made last month, and here's the original copy that I
But
got.
it's now up, it's now been brought forward, and a vote has been requested of us. So I am making the motion that Myrna send her corrected copy directly to the attorney so that he can review it. With the caveat that when it comes back, the board can make changes pursuant to the attorney's request. And let's just get this off this table because we have other stuff to do. So I will repeat my motion. I move that Myrna send directly to the attorneys her corrected copy.
Final copy.
Her corrected final copy to the attorneys, and the board will review it when it comes back. And then we can move this piece of business forward.
I second the motion.
Discussion.
I would discuss it.
This final copy, does it have the part in there about eligibility, you couldn't be a convicted felon and all that?
No.
It needs to be in that case.
Well, I don't think it needs to be there before we send it, because they're going to put it in.
Then we didn't see it.
I bet they do. We can fix it when it comes back. That was the.
Right, that's the whole idea, is no matter what they send, the board still has the right and duty to look it over prior to it being passed.
That lawyer doesn't cost you money to do this stuff, when you already know it's wrong?
That was the intent of the ad hoc committee and the whole thing, to straighten it out best they could and put in there the language they wanted to. Myrna still has that ability and option, the ad hoc committee still does.
All right, it's been disbanded. Okay, but I have a motion before it's been seconded.
I did call the question.
No further discussion, all in favor of approving Myrna sending her final draft of the bylaw changes for the voting qualifications and election qualifications to the attorneys. Motion made by Sandy Hagan and seconded by Myrna. All in favor? All members voted for approval. The next is discussion and approval, statement of authority to transfer real property. Do we have a motion for this item, or?
You make a motion to discuss the statement of transfer of real property.
We have a motion?
I'll second it for discussion.
Motion seconded by Myrna Castle. To start with, this article refers to the wrong section of the Business Organization Code. So I don't.
Sandy rewrote this. And
That's on section D.
Yeah.
Actually, this document was prepared by Tully, wasn't it? This document was initially prepared by an attorney to respond to the title company's request that we have someone or someones available to handle transfers for foreclosed properties. And we ran into a difficulty because some of us, not all of us, but some of us thought that section B was extending additional authority to sell property to the president of the board, the DO, and other board members. So this has been around for a couple of times and we've never done anything to it to change it. So I jumped in and I just made a suggestion that we add section D, which says, this statement of authority does not confer additional authorization to sell property by the president of the board or the director of operations or any other board member in excess of that already stated in Fort Clark Springs Association Bylaws, Article 7, 1D. To remove that thing, that this was in some way granting additional authority to the president of the board, the DO, or any other board member. So I specifically added that section to say that this document does not confer additional authority to sell property other than what is already stated in the bylaws, so that we don't have to spend $200 each time we need to have a title transfer done for foreclosure. So.
And how was this done in the past? There should be, if this is a mandatory letter, or we paid $200 before, did we, or?
I don't think we foreclosed on enough things to really have an issue with it, but I don't know. I was involved with that.
It looks like our records would show what the last director of operations had for authority to transfer property. Because the bylaws have always given the director of operations the authority to transfer memberships.
This is foreclosures. This is property attached to a membership.
We went out and looked at some of those foreclosure properties, and the ability to get rid of some of these by selling them or transferring them or whatever you want to call it would be something important, I think. But for all of the board members to have to stand on the courthouse steps and do it doesn't make any sense.
Well, this doesn't say anything about buying properties of what foreclosure would be, correct? When you foreclose, you're not selling anything.
Well, you're going to transfer the title of the foreclosed property. That's transferred. That's what transfer means. Excuse me. If you transfer it to a new member, say a member wants to buy a foreclosed property, you've got to be able to transfer that from the foreclosure. That's all this has been. We've argued this now for like 2 months. And the question the last 2 times was that the Section B gave the Director of Operations too much authority to sell property. Well, it also gave the President of the Board and 2 other board members in cases of $25,000 or more that seemingly same authority. It's not just the Director of Operations. So I added this to qualify Section B, that it does not give any additional authority to sell Fort-owned properties to anybody else. This is strictly transfer authority for foreclosures. And again, this was written by an attorney.
Well, if you look up the code he refers to, the Business Organization Code, Article 252.005, the whole title of Article 252 is unincorporated, not-for-profit associations.
Okay.
We're incorporated.
So, but that's not the issue of this, Roby, has been the authorization to sell property.
No, the issue was that it was never brought in front of the Board of Directors like it initially said it was. That was the issue to start with, is when did this get passed by the Board of Directors?
I was there, you were there.
I don't have any clue, remember about it, and B doesn't either.
That's why I've suggested in the future, when we do things like this, that there's a section on the bottom of these forms where all board members have to initial that they were present, whether they agreed with it or not.
All resolutions are supposed to be read in front of the membership as well.
And it was.
Well, where are the minutes that prove that? I don't know. I've looked in all the minutes I've got, and they're not there, nor are they any video recording that I've seen.
It was an executive session and you guys passed it and signed it.
You're not supposed to make decisions in executive
You
session.
did it, they came out of it.
And announced it.
They came out and announced it.
But it's not in the minutes that we ever
We
did that.
don't collect minutes in exec session.
It's not on the minutes in the public session when we announced what we did.
Well, then that is the president's fault for not mentioning it at the time, or maybe it wasn't, it's just not in the...
Unfortunately, I'm unable to find at the point in time, February and March of 2013, where we came back out of exec session and announced it.
That was my point to start with, is this was never, I don't know that it was ever done in open session anywhere, and it was never read before anybody.
Is it something we want? Is it something we need?
It's probably something that we do have to have, or the title company wouldn't have suggested it to
All
us.
right, then let's quit arguing over whether
Let's
it
pass
was
it right now.
then or now or whatever, and talk about whether or not it says what we want it to say, whether or not it agrees with the appropriate laws, and pass it again and get it done right.
We need to word it like the title company asked for it to be worded. I'm not sure, where's that document that the title company asked for?
It's in last month's session.
You better not start quoting that 252 because you could get in trouble, because that does not apply to you.
Just says the company requires a certified copy of resolution of the Board of Directors at Fort Clark Springs Association, a corporation, authorizing the current transaction and naming the officers who are designated to execute the necessary documents. The whole thing. And then this is the certificate of resolution to sell real property. And this is,
Which, again,
and this is signed.
What's the date on that?
that's the one that was,
10th,
this is one that was
2013.
supposedly done during the annual meeting last year, and there's no notes or minutes or video that reflects we did that
The
either.
annual meeting was in April, it was in March.
Date of adoption, March 30th.
No, the date of the adoption is on the back where it's
A
signed.
Texas nonprofit corporation duly
Oh,
called
I'm
and held
sorry.
on
I'm
Saturday,
sorry. I'm sorry.
March
I'm
30th, 2013.
I'm sorry, you are correct, Roby, I read the wrong date. Dropped it.
There's no annual meeting minutes that reflect that we did this either.
I think Myrna's point is, let's just do it now.
I would agree that we need to do it correctly. If we have to, I mean, I don't understand just because somebody wrote this down here, I don't know that it satisfies the title company requirements. I don't understand what the title company requirements are exactly.
Our attorney wrote it.
Well, he did a poor job, it would seem to me, because nobody can explain to me why it quotes the wrong section of law.
Is it the wrong section of law? What I
I-
proposed to you,
it
this
was-
has been a problem for the past 4 months. How come you never come in and sit with Rhianna and myself and really get to nitty gritty? We would hammer this out as opposed to hammering it out now.
Because it should be done in front of the membership. That's what, it should be done in front of the board members.
But all
It's
your
not a
questions, you
secret
could've
meeting
come in and
behind the
asked me.
scenes. If I had time, I probably would.
2.5 years, you don't have time to come in?
I've been pretty busy.
Okay.
I'm sorry, once again, what Jody is asking for is for someone, if not you, to come in and sit down and figure out what the title company needs and what it doesn't mean that you're doing it behind, because you'll come in again to the membership,
And that-
read it and explain how you got there.
That would be fine, because what we're presented does not make sense.
It doesn't matter at this point because clearly something has to be done. Let's talk about what to do, not why we didn't do the right thing before, please.
Well, I'm trying to. I would like to know what the actual requirements of the title company are. It says a certified copy of a resolution for the board to sell property.
Again, if I had Rhianna here who came at that last meeting to try to explain all this to you guys, and then again invite you in to sit with her, if I'd have known you had more of these questions, I could have had her here, or she could have set up a meeting with you after hours.
Well, I sent an email asking about the 252 section, and I heard no response.
Here's a copy of 252.
And it clearly says unincorporated. We're incorporated. There's a difference. That's why the semantics in law make a big difference. Shall and may is a big difference. Unincorporated and incorporated, there's a big difference.
Sticking to the choir road.
Well, then if you're the one that has all these opinions, why didn't we change that? Why didn't you inquire about that when I brought it to everybody's attention?
Because I don't recall you bringing it to our attention. Your whole
Well,
emphasis and
nevertheless,
stress was on me.
One more time, can
Right,
we
we need to
please
move forward with
start
Myrna's-
from now instead of going back and
Yes.
redoing this,
Right.
please.
We need to
I have a
get,
quick question. Excuse me.
yes, ma'am.
When do you determine a piece of property is subject to foreclosure? What do you determine? Is it because they're in arrears on their assessment? or their taxes?
No, it's for us, it would be arrears and assessments.
Just an assessment?
Right.
So you would foreclose on the property, the real property, even though they're current on the property?
They also have property taxes usually that are in arrears. So they're gonna get theirs first, whatever happens.
Because,
Well, we
real
won't-
property taxes would be handled by Linebarger, but.
Right, if you're behind on your property taxes and current on your assessments, we don't really care. We can't foreclose on anything except behind on assessments.
Okay, so that would be the only time.
Right.
Thank you.
And I would ask you, do you have any idea what the title company would mean by the statement of authority for the fort?
That's why I'm kind of confused why, how you would have that authority.
I am
When
too.
you foreclose on the piece of property, you have to, of course, you have to have the reason, legal reason if there, that's why I asked.
This is just for,
Are you
this is just for transfer of documents.
still-
It's not the authority to foreclose. That's in the bylaws and that's in the state statutes.
Yes,
This
ma'am, and
is-
that's what I was asking, when you, if you can answer this, on foreclosure, what do you determine which properties are subject to foreclosure? When would you decide that a piece of property would be subject to foreclosure? Ms. Higgins, as you mentioned?
No, I'm just telling you, I'm not coming in that, I'm coming in, this document is just authorizing specific people to actually sign the documents
Yes, ma'am.
for the title company
Once it's
that,
Yes, ma'am.
once it's foreclosed on.
Exactly, but what I was asking is, when do you determine that you will foreclose?
What's your procedure for foreclosure?
I would invite you into our office and make an appointment. We can sit down at that point in time and we'll educate you to the nth degree. So maybe we should get back to the items at hand.
I'd like to meet with you.
Absolutely.
That'd be
We
great.
can, your head will spin when you walk out of the
So I'll
office.
call Monday instead of.
Absolutely, with Brianna.
What the title company is needing is strictly when you foreclose on a property, somebody has to sign that title. It's going back to Fort Clark Springs. Somebody has to represent Fort Clark on these documents that you're taking that property back is what you're doing. And somebody has to sign that. It can be you, it can be B, it can be Myrna, it can be Jody. If you want to take off of work and do that on foreclosure day, that's your right too, but you have to have somebody named at the title company. So when it's done through the title company and on your document, they know whose signature is supposed to be on that piece of paper.
And I can understand that, but it shouldn't say in here the word sell. But anyway, Myrna was right, we need to get back to what we're trying to
And
figure out here.
previously, you asked who done it. Well, previously, Linda O'Brien was the collections person. And Ron Stewart was the director of operations at the time. And he was the one, previous to that, I don't know how long it had been since any foreclosures had taken place. But people were tired of people not paying up, and that's when they decided, the board decided to start the foreclosure process again. Some of them are delinquent, they're dilapidated, they're falling down, they're a nuisance to other people.
That's what you really, when you go around to look at some of these, they're probably, somebody's gonna get hurt.
But previously, it was the director of operations and collections that went to the courthouse steps and done these procedures.
Garland, you had something?
I was gonna say, when I came on the board, to go on train shop to start up the collection process again, because in the past, it got so bad, we got $1.4 million in delinquent debt, and that's what the debts we're talking about.
I make a motion, we table this until we can get the language that we want, until we can get the accurate law, whatever. I just table this and stop working it around, please.
I second that motion.
Any further discussion?
Say, I've been thinking while you people have been arguing about this thing, and if you people at the board, all of you sitting in this there that can't read and understand the English in that document, then God help all of us. That's all I got to say.
I would agree.
Amen.
Cancel the thing and be done with it. That's all it takes.
All those in favor of tabling this motion until the language is correctly presented to the board? In favor? All voting and unanimous.
to get the signature.
And on that too, I would like to see this other one, how we, the motion where we sold that property. I would like to see the documents where we did what it said. I would like to see the documentation that proves that we did do that on March 30th at the annual meeting, because we sold the property worth several $1,000s. And I'm sure we did. The certificate of resolution to sell real property, dated April 5th. And it's in last month's deal. I don't ever remember that happening. And it was signed and notarized, but it says that we convened at the March 30th meeting and acted on it. We adopted this resolution. The documents on the website, discussion on that. My comments here were we need all the documents on the website that govern Fort Clark Springs. All of them.
What's missing?
Our articles of incorporation?
They're on there.
They are, okay.
Not
There's
today,
a
they've
list.
been on there.
They've been on there.
There's a list, Roby. Did you read it?
Yes, and I don't find any of the current ones. I have a copy. What is the latest declaration that we have notarized?
The one that's on file at the courthouse.
Okay, and then I can't find another one between the one that was notarized in, what, 2011?
Is there one?
Where's the next one that was ever notarized? How did we get to that?
Well, I don't know what you're asking. I don't, I
Well, I'm
wasn't
asking-
here in 2011, I don't remember.
No, but there should be documentation. I know you wouldn't be remembering, I wouldn't either. I mean,
That's the
previous years.
latest one.
But the original one was changed considerably to the one we got now, and I can't find anything that it was ever legally changed.
I have absolutely no idea what you're talking about.
Well,
No, do I?
the only two declarations I can find that are on the website, that I can find at all, that have been notarized, were one in 1971 and the current one.
For what?
For the declarations and protective restrictions for the Fort Clark Springs Association.
Well, I would think that the only ones that should be on the website were the current governing ones.
Well, then this goes back to proving whether we're an HOA or not.
Well, that goes back long years. You can't put, if you put everything from 1971 on the website, we would need
I don't know that
more storage than we have.
I don't know that it all needs to be on there. The current governing documents do. However, in this document, it says the vote of the membership. Up several years, up into the 80s, it still says a vote of the membership.
Okay, so.
And it was changed to the voting membership. There's a big difference in the amount of people there. The membership is 3,000 people. The voting membership is 1,400. The majority of those two numbers are a big difference.
How do you get that?
What do you mean, how do I get that?
So how's that go back to
3,000 and
having
1,400?
the document,
How
you
do
have
you
the
get
most,
How do you get 3,000 and 1,400? There's 3,000 members?
More or less.
So they have the right to vote?
Right.
So what's the problem?
Only 1,400 people vote. That's not even half the
That
membership.
doesn't matter. That doesn't matter. If people don't vote, if they don't send the ballots back, they don't vote.
The
They vote for the president. How many people can vote in the government?
However-
Millions? How many people vote? Thousands? Does that make it not right?
Yes, more
People
or
don't
less.
want to vote, they don't vote.
To change this declaration, the original one says.
A majority of the membership, at its discretion, the residents of here, can amend this declaration if approved by the vote or written consent of a majority of the membership. So if you have 3,000 members, you have to have 1,501 voting for it.
That's only an oral vote at the membership meeting.
No, it's a vote or written consent
So-
to change the declaration.
I still don't know which declarations you're talking about, so.
All of the people that don't vote, when it's like that, all the people that don't vote are no votes, because they don't want to change.
what does this have to do with the website?
Whether they
There's
vote or
motion
not.
on the table.
Wait, this is,
I mean, what was it turning into? You're talking about documentation on the website, now you're getting into clarification of old documents from the declaration.
Right, I just
So-
wanted to make sure, and we talked about some of them, and I see our payment plan and different things like that are on there now.
Yep.
And that's fine.
Yeah,
So that's
the Senate
the-
Bill 507's on there, the chapter link to the 209, all that's there.
Okay, and then we have it in our packet here, you included that. But all that, this association was changed to an HOA by an illegal vote of when it was done.
Yep, did you look at your, we're gonna get to that topic item, where the IRS in 1975 stated that you were an HOA, and for 40 years you've been filing your 1120 as an HOA, with every auditing firm that's ever